James Prince, good to see you, man.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. Normally in Houston, but of course we're here in Dallas, and so. But you're on, of course, your book tour, and so let's talk about that. You've done music, you've done boxing, you've done all this other different stuff. Book is different.
Yeah, definitely different.
Well, talk about the one thing about having to write this type of book. You got to go deep inside and reveal some stuff that you probably, for a long time, didn't want to reveal.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and I went to those places. One in particular that jumps out at me immediately was my childhood. Some pain that I dealt with that I didn't realize still exists until I went there, and that was the death of my sister. When I was 11 years old, she was 12 years old. We actually stayed up to like 1 a.m. that morning when normally we go to sleep at 9 a.m. And we discussed the things we wanted to do for my mother when we got grown.
And so you said the two of you were talking about buying your mother a home.
Yes, she wanted to buy a vacuum. I wanted to buy my mother a home. And the next morning we got up, to go to school. She kissed my mother bye, gave me a kiss, and thereafter, around 3 o'clock after I got out of school, some of the kids came walking when I was at football practice, telling me my sister had got ran over by a train, and I didn't believe it. And more kids came saying your sister got ran over by a train. So at that point, I ran to the tracks, and it was there that I witnessed the coat that my sister wore that day. It was wrapped her blood and flesh was wrapped around the coat, and I heard people telling stories about her leg was jumping, her arm was jumping because my sister had got cut in half by that train, and that was the last time I saw her alive. So that was interesting place to revisit, even going to the apartment where we last had the conversation at.
I mean, that had to be. I mean, I've interviewed lots of authors, and some have said they had to put it down and walk away because tears was rushing, and they would all of these emotions, and so was it like that for you, having to reveal all that, because it's very easy for us to suppress that stuff, sort of just block it off.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that type of emotions, but it was something that I felt that I almost think I should have had some type of therapy for it back in the day. I remember, after that, I eventually had to ask my mother to let me move with my grandmother because I couldn't sleep that night. When I did sleep, I found myself dreaming about her. She coming in my dreams, which caused me to stay up all night, and eventually the next day in school I would fall asleep all the time. So yeah, it was a devastating effect.
Doesn't that speak to the reality of, because I mean, you talk about the type of trauma in the streets, and the reality is like look, I spent 6 years in Chicago, and when you talk about what's happening in our cities across the country, you got black kids who, whether it's a train accident, you're losing your sister, or whether it's gun violence, you got kids who, by the time they turn 18, they've experienced 10, 15, 20, 30 deaths. I mean, that's PTSD. That's daily trauma they're having to live with.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of many. I've experienced. I wrote about how I felt like I was going to funerals every week. You know what I mean? So I basically remember becoming scared, when I walk in a funeral because of the way people would act, jumping in, want to jump in a casket, pull a body out of a casket, jump in a grave. So at the age of 7, 8 years old, witnessing so much of that, yeah, it definitely had me feeling some kind of way.
What you called it the art and science of respect, and you talk about being in the streets, and that's a huge part of it. I think back to that great scene in the movie Malcolm X when West Indian Archie, Malcolm X said, "No, my number hit." And he's sitting there going, "No, that your number didn't hit," and he almost had him killed. And then years later, of course, West Indian Archie has his stroke, and even then he asked him again, "Did you hit that number?" He's like, "I don't remember." He said, "No." He said, "But it was my rep." The person's rep matters more than anything else.
Yeah, well, it definitely matters a whole lot, to have a rep in the streets can be everything, you know what I mean? Sometimes life and death situations is based on your rep, but also it's a process of getting that rep. And, that started for me walking to school. You know what I mean? Just a normal walk to school. The test of walking to school and walking from school, the fights, the bullies, the different things that, one had to go to and figure out, being a little dude, figure out how to use my mind to deal with the size advantages that a lot of guys had.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Now, a word from one of our Roland Martin Unfiltered partners. You've heard me say it before, and I will say it again. Write down this website, marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. I'm going to tell you why it matters. Legal marijuana has grown to become a $9 billion industry in roughly 6 years. Forbes magazine predicts the market will continue to grow to nearly $50 billion in the next 10 years. So whether you like it or not, legal marijuana is a growing industry, and it is only going to get bigger. Now, if you're an investor, you get it. You look for business models that are easy to understand in industries that are trending up. Our friends at Transatlantic Real Estate made their business very simple. They buy land that supports legal marijuana operations and lease it to high-paying tenants. So you are investing in the landlord of a licensed marijuana farm. Stop working so hard for your money. Let your money start working for you by investing in the legal cannabis industry. You can invest as little as $300 up to $10,000. But you can't wait. This crowdfunding opportunity is only available for a few more days. They say that you either make things happen, watch things happen, or sit around wondering what happened. Don't be the person watching and wondering. Don't let another investment boom get away from you. It's time to make something happen for you, your finances, and your family. And don't forget my pro tip. To be included, you must complete and confirm your application. And be sure to complete the process. Go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game, folks. Do it now before time runs out. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. And so we were talking about the whole idea of reputation. And you call this the art and science of respect. Why that title? How valuable is the notion of respect?
I think it's very valuable, even though it seems to be diminishing today in this world. To me, it's everything. It begins with giving it. I believe in giving it, and then, I also believe in earning it. And after that, I demand it. So, those are like three of the ingredients that surrounding respect. And I believe in having a word is so valuable and important, to even be a man of respect.
Where the phrase came from, word is bond.
Yeah. So I believe that, and it's everything. I mean, I couldn't think of a better name that characterized me and what I stand for.
You write about having that revelatory moment when this was your life and you knew I got to make a change.
Yeah. Yeah. My transition in that closet. You know,
your Damascus Road experience.
Yeah. It had a lot to do with my spirituality. You know, being a praying man and doing my whole journey in the streets. I'm like, Lord, before you take my freedom, you know, give me a sign before you take my life. You know, and I always look for that sign. I felt like I got a many signs, but this one in particular convicted me in a way where I knew without a shadow of a doubt, okay, this is my sign. You know, and you're like, okay, you asked for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that way, and I became obedient toward that sign. And I walked away and never looked back and got blessed beyond my expectation from being obedient.
For a lot of people, one, you asked for it. A lot of people don't ask for it.
Yeah.
And so even while you were doing what you were doing in the street, you knew that this is not the way I should be living. This is not the way I'm going to be able to continue to live.
Right. Yeah. No doubt about it. You know, I never wanted to make a career out of Rome. You know what I mean? I understood that from day one, but as a youngster, I really didn't care. You know what I mean? I didn't care to the extent where I was willing to die, because my whole motive came from a place where, you know, I wanted to break the poverty curse where my family was concerned, and I just chose to do it the best way that I felt, you know, at the time I knew how to do it. And, you know, having that mentality and, you know, being in the streets with the wolves, you know, you become a person that just don't care. So I understand.
So even while doing it, you still cared. It still mattered. Because some people just completely lose it. They just have no feelings whatsoever.
Well, some parts I didn't. You know, I remember purposely not going to church, not want to hear the word of God to even get that feeling. You know what I mean?
So you knew what it was going to do to you.
Oh,
so you said, man, look, okay, I'm not even going to go there.
Can't do it. You know what I mean? Because you can't play with it. It can cost you. You know what I mean? So I purposely wouldn't go for years, you know, because I didn't want to hear it. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, when that seed is in you, it's in you.
At the end of the day, you got.
Yeah.
One of the things that also I think is important for people when you talk about a transformation is that when you make a transformation, you literally have to leave some stuff behind, and it's very hard. When you made your transformation, were folks still trying to pull you back in, and how did you explain to others, I got to let you go, I got to cut you off?
Right. Well, you know, it was a spiritual thing where I was concerned. It was hard for others to even believe in my dream and vision, so I isolated myself. You know what I mean? It became a situation where I just completely isolated myself and surrounded myself with like-minded people that wanted to accomplish the same thing that I wanted to accomplish.
So you sort of did, Charlie Wilson talked about this in his book, so you basically did what folks who are alcoholics or drug addicts. They have to completely remove folks from their lives and have people around them who are going to say, no, who are constant reminders. Some would call spiritual armor bearers that, no, you made the decision. Mm-hmm. You can't go back.
Yeah, no, I think that's obligatory, you know, if you want to survive, because to play with it, you know what I mean, is a chance at falling back.
When you talk about decision making, also what I think is very interesting, when you were talking about starting Rap-A-Lot Records, you said, after I made my decision, I downgraded from a 5-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom apartment in a matter of months. I unloaded my Mercedes-Benz and the rest of my luxury cars, became the proud owner of one Astro van. If it could be considered a luxury, I let it go. Instead, I focused on One Gold Rap-A-Lot Records. For a lot of people, they would say, wait a minute, why can't I do both? But to strip down, I mean, that's a hard decision to make. But does it still go back to, again, that vision of I'm not going to grow up, and my kids will not grow up living in a level of poverty that I have to deal with?
Yeah. Not only that, speaking of my kids, that's one of my strongest motivations that I had. Also, is I'm doing it for them. Because I understood the longevity that was attached to the big picture, stepping into corporate America versus playing Russian roulette in the streets and, losing opportunities to be a parent. So I got all of these things on the scale, and it became easy in my mind, but the sacrifices that I had to go through in the entertainment business made me think over and over about relapsing and going back,
Because many of the same folks who are in the streets are in the entertainment business?
Yeah.
And the similar practices?
Yeah, exactly.
Music is very interesting, because especially when you talk about rap music. Luther Campbell, in his book, he talked about how cats from New York and from the East Coast and the West Coast look down on the Miami sound.
Yeah.
And his deal is because they didn't understand it. Here you have this record label in Houston. And again, when it comes to rap, East Coast believe they're supreme. Mm-hmm. After NWA, West Coast believe they were supreme. How did you navigate that by saying, no, we have something different that's down here, and we can still compete with what y'all do?
That took place actually in New York when I went and spent a couple weeks in New York, because prior to that I was like so busy, like hustling and kind of looking at everything from a distance. But that trip in New York, when I went to New York, because we moved Rap-A-Lot to New York for like a half a year, I went down a couple of weeks, had opportunity to go in the Def Jam office because I knew Leo Cohen, and he showed me checks that they was having, big checks from Run DMC, Houdini, and after sitting around observing everything, I realized that the artist I had at the time was trying to follow the East Coast sound. And, it was then I went back home from the New York office and said, we moving back home. I said, y'all trying to imitate.
So you moved from Houston there thinking that's the place to be.
Yeah.
And then you're like a fish out of water, and you say, wait a minute, we got something special down here.
Right.
So you return back to your roots.
Yeah, I allowed the guy who I had running my company and the artist to move there. And after I came out of that closet, I got a new mind frame. So I took a trip out there with them. And it was there, it didn't take me long. I said, let's move back, and we're going to do this my way, this last piece of money I have. And that's when I lost about 4 or 5 groups, because they was like, man, you too deep. You know what I mean? Because I wrote down stories. I said, y'all trying to write about something that I was successful with. Make this rhyme for me. I don't know how to write a rhyme, but I know the story. Make this rhyme. And they told me, they said, man, you too deep. So I got rid of all of them. And that's when I found 3 members that wanted to hear me, listen to me, and the rest was history.
Now, some people would have said, you have lost your mind.
They did.
You are crazy.
Yeah, they told me that. In their own way. Yeah, they said that.
And so, when you talk about your story, that's interesting because same thing was sort of NWA. Eazy-E wasn't a rapper. He was like, this ain't what I do. But he understood the story.
Yeah.
He understood that if you're going to communicate it, and then that's what of course, then that led to the partnership there with NWA. And so it's interesting that you transferring your experiences to these 3 individuals, mm-hmm. and then their stories also then began to get infused in. Typically, when it comes to music, it's from the person. It's not driven by the person whose company it is. Right. It's really driven by the artists,
right,
and their experiences.
Right. Well, I tell everybody I was a ghetto boy all the time. You know what I mean? I was a Ford member, and a lot of people felt my presence on the intros because I always spoke before the album started, and that's what like birthed a whole nother movement outside of what we were doing. But you know, I always wrote, you know, in the background. Didn't want to take credit for it, but I was involved.
And so, Ghetto Boys comes on the scene. Totally different sound. And folks receive it much differently. And again, you carve out your own unique sound, your own space in this world where it really was East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah, no, we had to do that against all odds because at the time, East Coast guys was monopolizing our radio stations, the clubs, and everything in Houston. So, you know, I had to make a believe out of them because they didn't want to, you know, they felt like we was too country. They didn't like our accents. They made fun of everything we was trying to do. So I had to create a situation to discourage those guys and say, man, y'all got to give us a chance. In our city, y'all can't be here.
So what does that actually mean?
I had to get creative, you know what I mean?
So you had to reflect on old days?
Yeah.
To remind some folks?
I can't lie. I mean, I had to mix it up because I understood.
You had to have a few special conversations.
A remix. Yeah, I had to do a remix.
Always, you had one of those black, look here.
Yeah.
So anytime somebody black say, look here,
yeah.
it's a whole different thing that's about to come out.
Right. I named it Courtesy Call. You know. Yeah.
So you made a number of those courtesy calls.
Yeah. I mean, I had to because without that being done, it's just like
You've been frozen out.
Yeah, we don't care. We don't care you from the South. We're not gonna play you. We're not gonna give you a shot, and that's just the way it is.
But isn't it crazy that, okay, first of all, you're talking about establishments that are in Houston.
Yeah.
People who live here, who live in Houston, who work in Houston. And then they're saying, you country.
Yeah.
It's sort of, I mean, when I was working here in Dallas, I was working at a radio station, and I was a guy who was from the Midwest. And everything about radio and television always was, you know, the Midwest sound. And he told me, he said, well, you have a slight twang. I said, are we not in Dallas? I said, I'm like, your ass ain't from here. Right. You from Wisconsin. Yeah. I'm from Houston. I said, I sound like where we live. Yeah. And he was bothered by that. And I was looking at him going, you do know you are working in Dallas, Fort Worth.
Right.
I sound like I'm from Texas because I'm from Texas.
Yeah.
And it was the craziest thing.
Oh, no, it's real. I mean, they discriminated against that heavily to the extent where we got booed. New York used to boo the Ghetto Boys when we go and perform there in the beginning. So, you know, it was a whole lot went on where that was concerned, just the way we speak. And now, as you can see, you know, I tell everybody, you know, New York to me a piece of bread, the West Coast a piece of bread, and the South we the meat. You know what I mean? We got the game in a headlock now. So,
because really, when you think about, again, what you did with Rap-A-Lot, what Luther did with Luke, first of all, that actually positioned Atlanta.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of Dirty South. I mean, that actually positioned them to be where they are, because if you weren't the precursor to that sound, that accent would not have been accepted. And then, of course, then we talk about Louisiana, Master P, and then, I mean, all of a sudden, you could just go on and on. Yeah. So, in essence, what Rap-A-Lot did and what Luther Campbell did caused these other regions of the country to be able to say, hey, we can also have our sound in this.
Yeah, that's true. We laid the foundation. And, you know, Master P, Cash Money, Tony Draper, all them guys were my students. You know what I mean? I shared my blueprint with each of them. So, you know, that's how they went.
You talk about blueprint, you talk about vision, and obviously you start with Ghetto Boys. How did you then walk folks through? Because first of all, not everybody can see your vision. How did you walk other people through when it came to other artists and their unique style and getting people to understand how you have to grow this company to go beyond just one act?
Yeah, I think it begun with me being an example because a lot of them wasn't believing until they was able to see a movement taking place. And from there, I would, share the ingredients with them on how to do these different things, through phone calls, through my intros. A lot of guys in the beginning was like locked. They was in bondage in street activity. So my thing was I had a unique way of explaining. I'm like, hey, the music thing is the new dope game. You know what I mean? Come over and let's try this here. So I was able to speak their lingo. And they like, I'm like, hey man, it's sweeter than that. And plus it got longevity attached to it. So they became believers and started trying different things. And I'm like, be yourself. Don't be afraid to be yourself. You don't have to follow nobody. Be you. And when we all start being ourselves, it was rewards came along.
But how did you get? Because you just said it. You said it's the new dope game, and it's legal. But how did you get? Did you have difficulty in trying to get some guys to understand that this isn't the dope game? This isn't the street.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of guys who are in rap who can't let that go, and that still dominates their career. They end up having no career. Then they go to prison or end up dead.
Yeah. Well, all of them didn't make it. You know what I mean? It begun with me. It was one of the hardest things that I had to do. I had to really humble myself because I explain it as, coming from the street and then dealing with squares. You know what I mean? So I'm like a fish out of water. But, I had to humble myself and focus on a bigger picture. And from there, you that's where your movement began. But a lot of people don't make it because, when tough times come, a storm come, they like, hey man, I gotta go back to doing what I know best. So everybody don't make it.
Gotta ask about Vanilla Ice. Now you say Vanilla Ice today, black people are like, oh hell no. And me being an alpha, and of course one of our phrases, ice, ice, baby, too cold, too cold. We will not allow that song to be played at any of our parties. And you write about that, how you, damn it.
Yeah.
What the hell was I thinking?
Yeah, no, I saw Vanilla Ice one night in a club in Houston, and I watched his talent, and I'm like, whoa, this guy's a white brother, he got something different. And, I took him back to the studio to hear different material and different things like that, and I saw the hunger in him as well. And you have to realize at that time I wasn't all the way serious about the music, but I had a gift that I didn't even know was a gift, and that was my ears. And he played me that song, Ice Ice Baby. I'm like, man, it sounds good. So I left it in the hands of my partner. I say, sign him. You know what I mean? And he stayed out there like a week or better in my studio, sleeping in the studio. So when I heard the song a few months later on the radio, I'm like, whoa, that's my song. So I called my partner excited, we got one. I didn't sign it. I didn't like it.
And you like, okay, I know I recall saying, sign. Now, if I tell somebody to do something, I do. Yeah. Take it that didn't sit too well with you.
No. And at the time it hadn't.
Did he get a courtesy call?
Well, we ended up going our separate ways eventually. But that record sold 12, 13 million. Mm-hmm. So that was like a slow pain that kept evolving.
Do you still feel that pain?
Yeah.
so even if you somewhere and it comes on you like, I'll be damn.
Every time I think about it, man, that was a lot of money.
I can imagine not being happy with it. I mentioned that point again by courtesy call, and you had to make one of those with a certain business deal, with a record label.
Oh, okay. Oh, you talk, It was so many of them.
You had to make so many courtesy calls.
Yeah, I mean, it happened with a few of them because, record labels, when you're dealing with these people, I tell everybody it's like, starting at the starting line on you in a pair of Nikes and they on a Harley Davidson. You know, they have so many advantages over people that's unexperienced, and sometimes they really abuse their authority. So, you know, I read the book Think and Grow Rich. And
Napoleon Hill?
Yeah. It actually, I got a lot of insight from that book on how to use my strengths against someone else's strength. And my strength just happened to lie in the streets. So, and I knew I have to use my strengths with finesse. So I was able to balance the scale a lot of times when these people were like really out of pocket and abusing their authorities. I figured out how to finesse myself around and get some respect.
Courtesy calls.
Yeah.
Courtesy calls. So Roy Wood Jr. tweeted this one day that you literally scared the hell out of him. So he told his story. He did this prank call, and he said, and literally in the middle of it, you start going, "Oh, I know this number. I know exactly where you at. I'll be there in 10 minutes." And Roy said, "Man," he said, "James Prince ran me the hell out the city." He said he scared me to death. Did you really mean to scare the comedian like that, or you were not down with prank calls?
No, he caught me on a bad day. Yeah, it must have been a bad day that day, and you know.
Have y'all talked about it?
Yeah, I met him. I met the brother. We talked and laughed, and had fun about the situation. But he didn't tell all the things he said that day either. You know what I mean? He was saying some out of pocket things.
But the prank call is meant the prank call is meant to make you mad,
right?
And he made you mad.
He accomplished that. He did. He accomplished that.
So when y'all met him, was he still sort of like, "Oh hell, is he gonna cut me? Is he gonna shoot me? Is he gonna stuff me?" And so did you put him at ease?
Yeah, we left there at peace. You know what I mean? He's a funny guy too.
Oh, Roy is funny, and yes, Roy, you definitely will be seeing this video. Absolutely, absolutely. I gotta ask you about, I'm gonna go back to church. And the importance of it. You are very close to, we share the same pastor, Ralph Douglas West, of the Church Without Walls in Houston. For somebody who stayed away, who didn't even want to go near the church, how important was it for you to have that close of a relationship with a preacher who didn't judge you, who didn't push you away, who didn't say, "Okay, I can't even be around you," who accepted you for who you were?
Oh, that was everything, and it began with Pastor Jackson, who happened to be a 10th grade dropout, and I was able to relate to this guy in a very unique manner, and from there, after becoming an adult, I graduated to Pastor West, and he took me on a whole nother level, and it meant everything to me to be able to bring 50 guys to Bible study. We marvel there deep, and nobody discriminate against us, and he teach us just like he was teaching, everybody else, and that meant something to me and to them as well.
You also write about having a battle, federal government.
Yeah.
A lot of folks have not won those battles, and that was something that really ticked you off.
Yeah.
Because you thought you were being targeted.
Oh yeah. No, I know I was. I know that they was trying to kill me. You know what I mean? And that has been proven. A lot of things that I said back then have been proven today. Just recently, a few months ago, one of the agents, Chad Scott, has been re-indicted on like 10 or 13 accounts for the very thing that I shined a spotlight on years ago. And, it was a fact. Jack Schumacher, the guy who, my investigators investigated and found out he had, 7, 8 bodies where he killed, one officer uses weapons, that many times. So this is who they assigned to me. And, I understand to be able to survive being a target like that, then, you know, I had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob on my side.
There's a young man out there who's thinking, or even a young woman, I can't escape this circumstance. It's multi-generational. It is what it is, and all I have left are the streets. What do you tell them?
That's a lie from hell. You know what I mean? And that's a lie that will keep you in bondage. You know, and you have to tap into a power that's greater than that power that keep you, you know what I mean, in bondage and paralyzed. And for me, you know, it was breaking that poverty curse, you know, where my family, where my loved ones was concerned. And, you know, one have to, whatever that may be, whatever that may mean to them, tap into that power, that motivation that you get from that power, and move forward.
Last question. There's a brother or sister who's in corporate America who they're slamming their head against that glass ceiling. They are trying to fight through and fight those battles. If they have it in them, how would you advise them to tap into their inner street self to navigate those walls? Because the reality is, there are similar circumstances that we have to navigate.
Right.
And they might be playing it so safe. What would you tell them?
A good start is go back to your roots. You know what I mean? One of the things that I always do, and I never allow myself to be disconnected from where I'm from, because, you know, to go back to Fifth Ward, like I'm from Fifth Ward, is a reminder, and it's a certain energy and motivation I get just by going back there and shaking hands and dealing with the homies that strengthens me to deal with, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the corporate America things become minute, you know what I mean, through them real situations you witness and go through, where the community and different things is concerned.
Got another last question. This is the last question. Is there something that you have not done yet that you really want to do?
Yeah, I definitely, one goal I haven't accomplished that I put on my to-do list years ago was I want to do a movie about my life, either a movie, documentary, something that deals with the movie business. I want to see how that money feels.
Well, I know a couple of people who are involved in that.
Yeah.
I can put you in contact with
We
them.
need to talk about that.
All right, then. Thanks, Prince.
Hey,
I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
It's the art and science of respect. Check it out.
You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.